Well, we have a lot to talk about. This is a follow-up to my previous video, Anthracite Coal Outside of Known Fields, with some new discoveries and some new research that I have done since publishing that video. The big things that we gotta cover are we have more documentation and physical evidence to support some of the claims that were made in the news reports in the previous video. In addition to that, we also have some side quests to go on in areas outside of the Anthracite region. So the first thing that's exciting is we have a mining permit for the White Pine Mine located outside Nicholson, Pennsylvania. And Nicholson is outside the northern Anthracite field. So we have a permit filed, and it says on the permit information that it was inactive and reclaimed. And because of the small footprint, maybe 2 acres at most, this indicates to me that it was likely just a prospect. Either way, someone had to go through the trouble of filing for a coal mining permit for this site, and that's why we have the record here on the state GIS website. So who would go through all the trouble of permitting and bonding that site as a coal mine? And that would be the Bald Eagle Coal Company. There isn't a lot of information available out there on them. It seems that they were active in the late 80s, early 90s, and they had two surface anthracite mines up around Shamokin and an underground bituminous mine in Virginia. Other than that, I haven't found any more information on them, but the location has been confirmed as being near Nicholson thanks to this report here, which lists the various sites within 25 miles of a project down in Luzerne County. So we can confirm that this site did have a permit filed for it. Interestingly enough, there is also a permit for that same location as a small surface quarry, and it's labeled as the Banks Quarry, and it seems that that's the family that owns the land. It's private property. I haven't been able to look, but it makes me wonder, did they start it as a surface quarry for aggregate or dimensional stone, find coal deposits, talk to the Bald Eagle Coal Company, and Bald Eagle Coal Company agreed to check it out possibly as a prospect for coal, which that might explain small footprint, maybe to start as a small private quarry, and Bald Eagle Coal Company filed for the permit, but then never developed it. Our next discovery comes from possibly the same area in Wyoming County. This comes from Facebook, the Pennsylvania Rockhounds groups. Tristan Blomquist here posted a picture of a coal seam he found in one of his quarries. And because I don't know the exact location, I don't know, could it be potentially from the semi-anthracite or bituminous fields, but his company focuses on dimensional stone, which would put it in Catskill Formation material. So that lines up again with some of the other discoveries reported in the previous video. Here's a better showing of the picture that he posted, and you could clearly see there is a very thin seam of coal running from the bottom left to the top right. Our next discovery also comes from the Catskill Formation, above the border in New York, the Overlook Mountain area. And in this report here that I've pictured, there is actually a mention of a small seam of anthracite coal being found, but it was never developed into anything, which it's interesting that this notes it because Catskill Formation, again, that also extends in northeast Pennsylvania. And it's great that all of these reports and news articles say, hey, we found seams of coal, in these areas, but where's the evidence? Like actual hard evidence, physical evidence. Well, through sheer happy accident, I have actually found some. Because of client confidentiality, I can't disclose the exact location, but I can say it isn't far from the Pennsylvania border in New York, and it is Catskill Formation. And here's a video I took of the scattered seams just laying in that boulder there. Some of the seams are soft enough that I could dig out easily with a pocket knife. Some of them are a little bit harder. We'll get into that more later with some of these other video clips I took. So it should be noted, especially in some pictures I've shown, that some of these seams do have that kind of glossy luster like anthracite usually does, as seen in this video clip. Some of these samples are particularly black. Some of them are more weathered here. I don't think it's anthracite, maybe semi-anthracite. So this rock here has this seam here, and there's a lot of carbon in the seams here. And at some point it split open and collapsed, displacing it apart and misaligning it about 1 inch, but this might have been the kind of coal seam described as what's found in Lanesboro and Harford and the other Susquehanna County prospects, because this is the same geologic formation. So here I have some samples I took under 20 times magnification. They're fairly small samples. I could not get any large chunks out, but I'm hoping to get these looked at, checked out, maybe even possibly a carbon content test if I find someone willing to do that. But I do have these samples I'd like to get checked out. And going back to deposits of coal, I think I would call those, this is my terminology, tiger stripe deposits, because they kind of resemble the tiger stripe camouflage from the 1960s and 1970s in how they lay in a rock. It's not one continuous bed like you would in the eastern anthracite regions. It's just these tiny seams embedded in the rock. So with these small seams, I see it being very labor intensive to try and get any substantial amount of coal out. I mean, we're talking seams that are measured, in fractions of an inch and so tightly together that it's not continuous seam. I can't see it being very cost effective for commercial endeavor to be moving coal out of this material, especially when, 50 miles away or less, you have regular anthracite fields, which will be higher grade and won't need as much labor to remove it. And a lot of the labor is going to be spent in sorting out the waste rock from the coal. In typical anthracite operations, you would remove your waste rock from the coal. In this, it would likely be the opposite. You'd be removing your coal from the waste rock. And maybe if you had more of these seams thicker and closer together with more volume of coal compared to waste rock, perhaps it could have been worth a small mine for just personal consumption like I theorized in the previous video. So now to shift gears a little bit, I got these samples that were mailed to me by a viewer. Shelly, I really appreciate this. I know postage isn't cheap anymore, but these appear to be samples of anthracite coal from a limestone mine out in Clarion County. At least the foreman on site classifies this as anthracite, and it has that traditional anthracite gloss to it. And these are some pretty substantial samples here. However, the Clarion County there, that is part of the Allegheny Formation in Pennsylvania age. So that does put it in, the core forming time period. But this is located in bituminous fields. And not only that, but it's from a limestone quarry, so coal isn't even one of their major products, if at all. If I'm not mistaken, I believe they have to file a whole new permit to be pulling coal out. If I zoom in here, we could really see some of the structure in coal, and it does have that traditional anthracite luster and glossy appearance. So that makes me wonder, could we have had in the bituminous fields here, we already have the material that's going to form anthracite, but is it just a matter of there were localized conditions that could form it? Here I have some samples under 20 times magnification where you could really start seeing the details in these specimens. And while I got a sample here under some 20 times magnification with the Hanlons, we even have what appears to be a little bit of peacock coal buried in this one sample here. That's certainly very unusual for bituminous fields, at least to my current knowledge. Here are some other samples that Shelly had mailed to me from her own property, and these samples, I believe these are more of bituminous coal, because they don't exactly have the shine and luster that the anthracite samples do. And there are some sections where you could see, some kind of reflection, but it's not the same quality as the other samples that she mailed from the quarry. And I suppose the takeaway here, at least for me, is perhaps local conditions, given the right material, could produce anthracite coal. So now let's shift gears again to the Mesozoic Basin. According to geologist Jerry Jones on the Pennsylvania Rock Hounds Group, the Mesozoic Basin in Pennsylvania contains coal that's more like a lignite or brown coal, and local beds have been documented by the Geologic Survey as shown here. These deposits are considerably longer than the Devonian and Pennsylvanian age deposits, being about 180 to 200 million years old, and likely due to that younger age and depositional conditions, that hasn't allowed the coal deposits to become more refined like you see in the other field. Many of these beds are formed by organic material being deposited in these basins as they filled. Because of these beds are small and localized, generally they haven't been of commercial interest. However, that doesn't seem to have deterred some people from attempting, because it seems the Jettle Coal Company tried to work some of those deposits as shown here, and on the permits records it's marked as the Park Mine, Park, and Primrose Mine, and as it was worked as a surface operation, but now it's considered inactive and reclaimed. However, the strange thing to me is, looking at the LiDAR data for that location, I don't see any signs of surface mining or reclamation, so I wonder if they just filed the permit, and then, like in the previous example, just never developed it much. Our next report comes from Milton Grove in Lancaster County, and it's just a report of coal mining along the creek there, and I don't see any signs of any activity, these obvious signs from the LiDAR data. There is a quarry right there, but I'm not seeing any signs of any immediate coal-related activity, and it's not a location that I have access to for some boots on the ground searching. But it is worth noting that this has been reported, and if true, is likely related to the Mesozoic Basin's coal as mentioned in the previous section that we just had discussed. So I know this video has been more of a piecemeal affair where we've expanded the scope from, coal occurrences in the Catskill Formation north and northern fields to coal occurrences outside of areas where there's known to be coal, including, anthracite coal in bituminous fields. And the entire reason for that is just because of the information that, I've come across, and some of the information that you guys have notified me of. And if it weren't for that, this will not be possible. There will be a part 3 coming along at some point when there is enough information compiled to justify part 3. But I just want to say, like I always try to end the videos, I really appreciate you guys, and I appreciate your time and your assistance. Thank you again.